Welcome to the News9 Mediaverse, and you are watching On Point. Gaza land operation is imminent. Air attack is already softening. I would say pulverizing the enemy targets, but Israel will need to get inside Gaza to meet its so-called strategic objectives. But what will be the cost of it? Has Israel done this before? Yes. The answer is that Israel has done it in the past, after 1967, when it took over Gaza Strip after the Six-Day War from Egypt. But before that, let me take you through the details of it, as to what did Israel did when they went inside Gaza, because today they are preparing for it. The reservists have been out, the iron wall of tanks have been built, but they did something differently on 3 occasions. Let me take you through those 3 occasions. Israel has invaded Gaza twice. And both 2 invasions, when they got inside Gaza, they differed. The strategic objectives were different. The first operation was called Operation Cast Lead. Then, second operation was called Protective Edge, and the Cast Lead differed from the Protective Edge operation. Operation Cast Lead was executed in 2009 with very different set of objectives. Operation Protective Edge was executed in 2014. Current operation is giving less advance warning to the civilians, which is different from the earlier operations, and I'll tell you what is the advance warning. No roof knocks given this time. Aditya, roof knocks, would you like to explain the roof knocks?
Well, usually what happens is that every time, Karthikeya, there is an airstrike and a particular target is chosen. There is different ammunition that is used. There are, of course, precision strike missiles, rockets that they have. They can strike a particular window. They can strike a particular floor. And there are various examples in the last few days as well. Roof knock is basically, every time there's an airstrike, they, before doing that airstrike, put ammunition on the roof of that particular building, which is harmless.
Correct.
It will not cause casualties. And it will be an alarm. It will be a warning for the civilians there. You leave immediately before the airstrike is coming.
So generally, roof knock can have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, it entirely depends on the Israeli forces. So there are no roof knocks given this time. The bombs are just coming in. Earlier, it would give civilians 10 to 15 minutes to leave. But now they are not giving any roof knocks. One option, because now we are discussing Gaza, is shallow incursion of 2014. So 2014 was a shallow incursion. IDF captured border areas close to tunnels in 2014. They shut them. The whole idea was to prepare a subterranean wall and flush out Hamas and seal those tunnels. That is why it was shallow. The deep operation took place in 2009, Operation Cast Lead. They went inside Gaza. They killed terrorists inside. It was a deeper operation. Now, the issue is, right now, the difficulty is that Hamas is deeply embedded in Gaza. They're embedded everywhere, and Hamas is embedded in schools. I'm sorry to say that's the reality. And I'm sorry to say that's the reality that they're embedded in mosques. And I'm sorry to say that Hamas, it's a reality that they're embedded in charities. No one is going to say schools can be radicals. Mosques and religion have nothing per se originally to do with radicalization, and charities also, but all of them are embedded by Hamas terrorists in Gaza. Now the question is, has Hamas turned into another ISIS? That's the question. And has Hamas radicalized the entire Gaza Strip the way Mosul and areas of Syria like Idlib have been radicalized, so civil society sustains terrorism? Can Israel repeat Operation Cast Lead? That's the question. 360,000 reservists have been mobilized. Can Israel dissect Gaza into 2? But northern borders are vulnerable. Towns have been evacuated. As I said, northern towns have been evacuated because of the threat from the Hezbollah. Iron Dome can also run out of missiles in a long war. It is a 3-layer system. The first layer is Iron Dome. The second layer is the sling, and the third is arrow. But after the win, the question is who will administer the territory? Isn't it, Aditya? That's the real question. You can get these terrorists, but then who governs? Because ultimately, even Israel would want a wasteland. Even Israel would want a wasteland. Ultimately, it's also about international positioning, perception. And why, this question will be reserved for all my guests, why Netanyahu has been cautious in using military. And Israel's response can be disproportionate like 9/12. You would be very surprised that I am using this word. I'll tell you why I am using this word. When 9/11 took place, people said what America thought of going after Al-Qaeda on 9/10 was very different from what America decided to do on 9/12. Because what happened on 9/11 changed the psyche of the American administration. So, the terror attack on Israel has changed the psyche of the Israeli state. So, what they thought of doing with Hamas a day before Hamas terrorists went inside Israel is completely different from what Israel now think of Hamas. So, this is the reason I have used the word 9/12. The date is not important. It's the psyche which was created after 9/11. And that's the most important thing. And this is the Gaza Strip. So the issue is, can they cut Gaza into two? Can they cut Gaza into two? Will they only go to the Gaza city? What about North Gaza? Deir Balah, Khan Yunis, Rafah? It's a densely packed area. 40% of the population is below 15 years. There are 5,000 to 7,000, maybe 10,000 terrorists inside, but you have 23 lakh people in Gaza. 23 lakh people. They might be radicalized, but all of them might not be terrorists. So that's the dilemma. That's the preparation. But before that, let me take you through one bite. I'll play two, but one bite of my colleague's interview, Aditya Rajkal, with Israel's ambassador to India. Listen to him.
That Iran is involved there. We don't know about the planning because we were surprised and we didn't know. So maybe in the planning also, but we are not sure of that yet. But for sure, in equipping them for a very long time, helping them with building their force and also training them. That is there. So in parallel, the other Hezbollah, Iran proxy Hezbollah in the north, in the Lebanon border, started harassing Israel there in order to threaten that they will take action. So a few infiltrations came in, Israel retaliated. For the time being, it's contained, but they are threatening to open a second front, and that's why also the Americans moved first and now a second carrier into the Eastern Mediterranean to send them a message, Iran and Hezbollah, that escalation and second front is not there. So we are concentrating now on Gaza, bombings, big troops around, and let's see in the next few days what will happen. In general, we know that this is unlike any other skirmish we had in the past. The end game here has to be totally different than in the past. We cannot have Hamas stay in Gaza with the ability to do again an action like that. We have to make sure that this doesn't happen again. There was a dual attack by...
Sorry, Aditya, I think it's a problem of plenty. I think instead of your interview, the ANI bite ran, but nonetheless, the issue is we've got to run the bite of the Israeli ambassador who was making a very strong point. Let me go across to Dr. Lauren Dagan, who joins us from, Israel. And I'll also be joined by Rajiv Nayan from IDSA and my strategic affairs editor Aditya Rajkal. But Dr. Lauren, first to you. The protective, or I would say, okay, let me rephrase it. Do you think the Operation Cast Lead is a stronger possibility, one? Or do you think that the protective edge is something which the Israel would be thinking of like a shallow incursion when it comes to Gaza? Because reports are that the mobilization of the reserve forces have already taken place and their deployment is there. Can you unmute yourself, please?
I'm sorry. I just want to say thank you. Listen, Hamas is ISIS. What they are doing to us, it's crazy. Really, they're killing our children, women in pregnant, soldiers. They are killing everyone. So Israel should go in as Gaza and put order, not to control, but to face with Hamas. Hamas went crazy. Iran is control this. It's very difficult time, and Iran doing whatever she can to destroy Israel. But we never give up, and we will not give her this opportunity. So Israel must defend herself. And you say earlier that we, in the knocking roof, we are telling the people go outside their home. But on the last Saturday, no one told the families to go out. Actually, the murders came into the house.
Dr. Lauren, my question was, Dr. Lauren, my question was, do you think that this is going to be a deep strike inside Gaza or like a shallow incursion which happened in 2014? Do you think it's going to be 2009
yes,
or 2014?
I hope so. I hope so.
What do you hope so?
I really hope so.
That?
I hope that it's going to be very deep in Gaza, and I hope the army will do its best.
Okay. Aditya, do you think that it's going to be like a 2009 strike, or you think it's going to be like a shallow incursion? And my second question to you, you take both the questions. Do you think that there's a possibility that the Gaza can be divided into two parts, separated?
About the second question, I'm not sure, but if it favors Israel in many ways, then certainly there could be a division. But one thing that I'm certain about, Karthikeya, is the fact that protective edge or cast, I personally believe that the kind of operation, the kind of ground assault, the kind of intrusion that Israel will do in Gaza will be never seen before, will be unprecedented. And by that I mean it will be not only room to room and building to building intervention that we'll certainly see, it will perhaps also be occupation. And not an occupation only for 15 days or 3 months, but perhaps a larger span of time. I don't know exactly what would be the mode of governance. Will the PLO be handed the keys and the power, really, as has happened in the past? But Hamas often is known to take away the power forcibly from the PLO. But in this particular case, I think it's going to be a more permanent kind of occupation by the Israeli forces and the political establishment, because the statements are very clear.
Aditya, last time when there was a permanent occupation, they left in 2005.
No,
it was costly.
I don't think it's going to be occupation.
And it costed.
It's not going to be occupation.
I'll come to you. I'll come to you. You can differ. You can differ from Aditya. It was costly, and Israel thought differently of it. That is why they came out, and they economically incentivized the Gazans. So that is why I'm asking you, why do you think that it's going to be a long stay inside? Because that means that Israel will end up governing Gaza.
That's true. It will be perhaps a similar kind of formula that they have applied in West Bank. But Israel has experienced this for a very long time. They have given opportunities, that the kind of funding that Gaza gets, the kind of aid that Gaza gets should be utilized for development, for hospitals, for school, for education, but instead it's used for terrorism. And that's why the kind of statements we have seen from Benjamin Netanyahu or even Gantz and other leaders clearly suggest the operation will be unprecedented and the occupation is inevitable really in Gaza. We've also seen, in my visits to Israel when I've interacted with the IDF, and I remember a particular incident, Karthikeya, in Kerem Shalom, border crossing, which is one of the major routes of trade, and also a lot of humanitarian aid that enters Gaza. And the leader of the Kerem Shalom border crossing explained to me with details and videos and examples on ground that a lot of material that goes for plumbing or pipes, etc., is further used to make rockets etc., or handmade ammunition. So, you know, a lot of opportunities has been given, but unfortunately Israel has been backstabbed time and again. And the kind of, one, embarrassment, second, the killings, and third, the kind of hurt and wound that Israel has had right now is unprecedented, and I feel that Israel will respond in a much fierce manner.
I think Dr. Lauren had a different view. Dr. Lauren?
No, I don't disagree with my friend, but I think that we don't have interest to occupy Gaza. We don't want it. Hamas is occupying its people. Hamas doesn't give its people electricity, water. We don't want to do this. We want to harm Hamas. Hamas is ISIS. Hamas is doing terrible things to the people in Israel and to his people in Gaza. So we don't want to control Gaza. We never wanted, but we need to control what Hamas is doing. And from my point of view, we need to kill all Hamas and to melt them down.
Okay, let me play another bite. Let me play another bite of the interview which Aditya took.
It was a ISIS kind of operation, really. Merciless, women, children, elderly. They killed whole families, they murdered. I don't want to go into all the atrocities and the war crimes there, but it really, the pictures of ISIS decapitating. So I'll stop here because the viewers don't have to hear these graphic things, but it was something we never knew in the past. We had things, but nothing that is ISIS-like. We understand that Hamas adopted over the years really the approach of ISIS, and that was the situation. We have to admit that there was a collapse of the protection there, and then citizens found themselves alone against the terrorists.
And I'm also being joined by Dr. Rajiv Nayan from IDSA. Thank you so much for joining me. The question is, the terrorists in the Gaza can be taken care of by Israel. But the issue is, am I audible to you, Dr. Nayan?
Now it is.
Okay. So the question is, the terrorists can be flushed out, the Gaza can be destroyed, but then how do you administer it? How do you administer it? What will be left to administer Gaza?
No, it will be very tough to administer Gaza if you are destroying the zone. It's a tough job. For the last 18 months, after 2020 11-day war, it was not easy. Somehow, this time, Israeli Defense Force or Israeli establishment was deceived by the Hamas strategy, or because it's planning war to Hamas. But it has been a tough job, no doubt about it. And I agree with the viewpoint that it is, why are you going to just occupy the place and be in the constant conflict with a population which is otherwise hostile, even if it is not a terrorist group or a terrorist population, yet it will be hostile towards you. So it will be tough. Now you are giving the example of West Bank. That could be experimented, but I don't think Israelis could be, or the Israeli state will in the mood to experiment that in that zone, because already radicalization has taken place.
Dr. Rajiv, do you think there's a possibility that they can divide Gaza? Because there are two operations which we are talking about. The first operation was of 2009, Operation Cast Lead. The second operation was of 2024. That was a very shallow incursion which they made. And then a year ago, there was a genuine operation which, I wanted to talk about. In genuine operation, they went inside, flushed out the terrorists, killed them and came back. So, there are ways in which Gaza has seen Israeli action post 2005 in multiple ways. What sort of action are we going to witness?
I don't know what will be the Israeli strategy about that. But one thing which they are making it very clear that they are going to flush out all the Hamas terrorists, and the lady just now on your screen, on your channel also talked about that. So they are very determined to flush out, to take out all the terrorists staying on the Hamas, especially Hamas terrorists. I don't know whether it will succeed or not, because Just now we talked about radicalized population. And this radicalized population may feed the future Hamas groups. Even if many of them are destroyed, or almost all of them are destroyed, yet some of them will be left out, or some of them will be remaining, and they may cause problems. So what Israel needs to do is to evolve or devise a long-term strategy so that it has got some kind of better peace situation. It is not easy. I completely agree that it is not going to be easy. It is not going to be an easy situation. But somehow they will have to experiment that. Somehow they will have to engage with the Palestinians, those Palestinians or those who are staying even on Gaza, the Gaza Strip, which we call. So how to engage them and make them a stakeholder in the entire developmental process, or somehow give some semblance of that democratic governance to them. I don't know, it's tough, but yeah, it is the divide is very deep, and how it is going to be managed, it's a tough question, no doubt.
Okay.
Many tried, even many US administrations tried. Today Blinken was there, and he went there as a Jew. He did not go there as a Secretary of State.
Okay, Dr. Rajiv.
All are trying, so I mean, let's hope that something comes out of it. So, but I am still very pessimistic about it.
Okay, Dr. Lauren, I'm reading an article which was published in Economist. Okay, it says ultimately the Israeli leaders are caught between the maximalist rhetoric of eliminating Hamas and the implausibility of reoccupying Gaza. Hamas leaders and a large proportion of fighters are likely to emerge from their bunkers and restore control over the strip to minute the IDF leaves. Even if Israel were to succeed in smashing the group, it is unclear to whom Israel would then turn to administer the territory. How is Israel expected to address this dilemma, Dr. Lauren?
Let me understand. You want to, after the army operation will end, what happened?
Yes.
I really hope so, that from my point of view, that another Arabic countries will involve more in Gaza, will help the people in Gaza. I hope that Hamas will destroy, Israel will destroy Hamas. I really hope so that maybe Asian countries and maybe other Arab countries will help the people in Gaza, and maybe we can live in peace with them.
See, Aditya, there is another point to this, and the point is about the Prime Minister of Israel. And I quote, during his career in Israeli politics, Netanyahu, Israel's Prime Minister, has been cautious in using military force despite his public hawkishness. Is it correct?
Well, that is true, because I told you that Benjamin Netanyahu from the very beginning has avoided to, launch a large-scale military operation inside Gaza.
Why, in your opinion?
Because, just like the panelists said, and the expert from the IDSA also said, that, it's too much of a cost. And if the local population is hostile, then it doesn't make sense. Yes, you want to flush off terrorists, you want to make them incapable, their capacities need to be reduced drastically, and this time probably it would be done to a large extent. But you need to also understand that a large population is also radicalized. And just like we see in the West Bank, a lot of protests, violent protests, a lot of stone pelting, riots, arson, etc. It's much worse in Gaza if Israel plans to stay there longer than a few weeks. So I think the costs are very high, and it doesn't really, in a very pragmatic approach, logical approach, it doesn't make sense. So Karthikeya, we'll have to wait and watch what really the Israel government really plans to do in the long road. In the short road ahead, of course, they will launch the ground operation. They'll try to flush out Hamas. The killings would be much higher. The numbers are even higher. Even today, there are 1,200 Israelis who have died already. There are more than 1,400 people in Gaza who have died, and there's no breakup of how many of them are civilians and how many are terrorists. And 5,000 or more each on the Israel side, and in Gaza, civilians are injured. So there's a huge humanitarian cost to this war as well, if we think on those lines. As you rightly pointed out in your introduction, a lot of mosques, a lot of schools, a lot of hospitals, and unfortunately a lot of UN compounds that are there for humanitarian aid and particularly to rescue and help women, children, babies and elderly women are of course used by these Hamas terrorists for their human shield, to in fact take shelter and make them as their hideouts. A lot of tunnels underground these safe locations have been built as well, not just for ammunition but for men to really stay safe around that area. So it would be a Herculean task and a challenge even before the IDF when they go door to door or building to building to clear that entire area.
Okay, let me play out one more bite of the interview which Aditya did with Israel's ambassador to India.
3,000 people more or less in the party. It's very customary to do that. It's overnight and they drink and they sing and they listen to music. It's a cultural thing. We have it all around Israel. Youngsters love it. Yeah, their only crime is to be in the wrong place and a very comfortable target for Hamas. They sent with the pickups, with like you see from Daesh, from ISIS from that time, pickups with people with the machine guns on them, just shooting. We didn't speak of the fact that they are assumed. So we have around now the figures are more than 5,000 rockets shot to Israel. We have about 1,200 casualties. The vast majority, more than 1,000, are civilians. 260 at least from there. Many children and whole families that were slaughtered in their homes.
So these are the visuals of Gaza. I really don't know what will be left of Gaza to be administered or to be built or to be rebuilt. If you look at the destruction that is taking place in Gaza, I don't know what the bombings will do. Yes, bombings will kill Hamas terrorists, but unless and until they are more precision centric, wouldn't they end up radicalizing the entire gamut of population? And that was my question. Has Hamas turned into ISIS and have they ended up radicalizing the entire society? Look at these visuals. I mean, so this sort of destruction, Dr. Lauren, my question is obviously the Israel needs to go after the terrorists. There's no doubt about it. They need to be eliminated. But when you have this firing, this war, there is also a great deep impact on the psyche of the people who are lived there. Isn't that creates a possibility of further deep radicalization in Gaza?
Unfortunately, yes, Hamas has been radicalization through the Iran impact. Listen, they put ISIS flag on Sufa kibbutz. They murder kids. They kidnap women in pregnant and grandmother and grandfathers. It's crazy. I don't think the people in Gaza are radicalization, but Hamas definitely move a shift with this radicalization, and Hamas is ISIS. Definitely. There is no question. I'm sorry. It's very difficult for us. Look, you need to now to put the pictures on Israel, not in Gaza. You need now, right now, to see what happened in Israel, not what happened in Gaza. Because in Israel, we have smell of the bodies, the blood, the houses they're burned, with people inside. This is ISIS. This is Iran.
Okay, Aditya, fair enough. But then how do you deal with this issue of if I say that the Hamas is the new ISIS, it means that it has also created a support base, because ISIS didn't function in a vacuum. You had an entire segment of the population that was radicalized. Even today, Al-Qaeda functions in Idlib because the entire Idlib is radicalized. Mosul functioned as an ISIS headquarters for a number of years because the entire population was radicalized. 20-30% felt that these are fanatics, but others cooperated with them.
Two things are important to be mentioned here, Kartikeya. One, that today I received a message from the IDF because I am in their official media group, and they sent a photograph that was recovered from one of the areas that the terror attacks took place in southern Israel, and this was from a pickup truck. There was a huge flag of ISIS as part of the Hamas operation. This clearly signifies the fact that the ideology is the same. It might be two different groups operating in different areas, but the clarity, the ideology, the functioning and the brutality of ISIS and Hamas is absolutely the same. It mirrors. But at the same time, we have to understand it's not just about brutality or their strategy. It's also about who is backing them. Where do they get the funding? Where are they getting their ammunition? And this time around, the kind of focus there is on support of Iran to Hamas. And Kartikeya, the biggest challenge out here is, and I've been studying this in greater detail, that if this leads to a two-front war with Hezbollah in the north and Hamas in the south, this would be a massive, massive escalation. Will the US be forced to join hands? Because already US is supplying military, and let's not...
Okay, let me play out the bite of Anthony Blinken. You were talking about the United States. Let's listen to Anthony Blinken.
We're delivering on our word, supplying ammunition, interceptors, to replenish Israel's Iron Dome, alongside other defense materiel. First shipments of U.S. military support have already arrived in Israel, and more is on the way. As Israel's defense needs evolve, we will work with Congress to make sure that they're met. And I can tell you, there is overwhelming bipartisan support in our Congress for Israel's security. Here in Israel and everywhere, we will reaffirm the crystal clear warning that President Biden issued yesterday to any adversary, state or non-state, thinking of taking advantage of the current crisis to attack Israel. Don't. The United States has Israel's back.
I think that says it all. Dr. Rajiv, I think it's a clear support on part of the United States that America has got Israel's back. But there's also one important, I would say, observation. Saturday, the attack took place. Till today, the West Bank has been quiet. There has been no, I would say, protest in the areas of Sheikh Jarrah. If you recall, it was the protest in Sheikh Jarrah in 2001, 10-day Gaza war, that led to skirmishes between Hamas and the state of Israel. Why is West Bank quiet?
Definitely, this is what is being talked about now. Abbas, has Abbas been engaged by all the stakeholders, or again the question comes in, you have to engage the population, and somehow some people have been killed in West Bank also. No doubt about it. Around 30-35 people is being reported and have been killed there also. Number may increase, or there could be number may have increased by now. I don't know. The way the number is increasing in both areas, like in Gaza and in Israel. So yes, it is there. So this is the moot question. This is the most important question. Why one party is just quiet this time? And in fact, and this is what we have to focus our attention on. And initially, as the lady has pointed out, Iran was slightly appearing supportive to the strike, the Hamas strike in Israel, but gradually it changed. Of course, it has got the old rhetoric saying that no, we have to support the cause of Palestinians. But Syria was the only country which fired some artillery guns. Otherwise, generally, they all are defensive. The brutality, I think the brutality of Hamas and its linkage to ISIS, I think has made all the supporting countries of the region quite defensive. And that part is to be somehow consolidated upon. If you just keep isolating people, keep dividing people, those who are really peace-loving, or you can say they believe in non-violent means of settling disputes, and those who are trying to settle dispute by violent means, I think that part, that strategy, that tactic needs to be employed. I think somehow.
But I think it's also because of the fact of the American support. They have put Nimitz class, the Gerald Ford is there. In fact, it's a strike group carrier. It's got frigates, it's got destroyer. I mean, that's the might of the American Navy. It's there.
No, the American support is always there. And this time, even the Friedman, the ambassador who was during the Trump administration, really praised the Biden administration that it had given all kind of support. And in fact, he said that all the kind of support Israel needs now and the amount of support Israel needs now. He was not very detailed, but it indicated quite well that Israel is getting all kinds of support. I think including ammunition, arms and ammunition, and other instruments also, other tools also, and so are quite okay, fine. And even Germany has come out with its support, and other countries they are giving funding to Israel. So support is there. Support is not an issue. In fact, the world is supporting Israel today. No one will support this kind of brutality. I think somehow Hamas lost its battle. Anyway, it is a terrorist organization. It has lost its battle. It will not get support if it goes like this. And that's why even some of the radicalized people, it has been radicalizing people. No doubt we are.
I'll just have to just hold yourself. Any specific reason why Sheikh Jarrah and other areas have been quiet? You know, you have also been to West Bank areas. You know, Ramallah. Why have they been quiet, Aditya?
Well, the basic point is that the Hamas doesn't operate from there. And the PLO...
Are you saying Hamas doesn't have assets in West Bank?
It does. It does have assets. But the kind of scale, the kind of freedom, the kind of operational ability
and West
that they
Bank
have
is home to the
in Gaza.
holiest shrines.
Absolutely, it is. And I think PLO works under some kind of a charter and won't allow Hamas to, operate in that area. But having said that, I would say that the Saturday terror attacks in Israel, I think, are the biggest blow to the Palestinian cause in the last many decades. I think there would have been some forward movement in talks, just like we've seen Abraham Accords. We've seen that there was possibility of normalization of ties between Saudi and Israel. That has again gone on a back foot right now. But there was a huge possibility, there was a huge opportunity out there of some kind of a temporary solution or talks to move forward. But unfortunately, this terror attack has happened, and just like Dr. Nayak explained, that no democracy, no global power is going to support this kind of violence, mayhem and terrorism. There is certainly no good terror and bad terror. Many out there on social media and all across are trying to defend Hamas terror and saying that it's an open air prison.
Do you think that the broader perspective, it's understood, India is also dealing with terrorism in Kashmir. India has resolved the issues of terrorism in Punjab and Mizoram, Lal Denga Accord, even the Longowal Accord of Punjab. There is, the states have on the flip side, capacity to get sucked in. Do you think that the deep operation of Gaza can do that? A shallow operation will not do that. A deep operation can suck in the Israeli army. Is it a possibility?
Israel had almost thought that there was some kind of a normalization.
Okay.
And they had realized that perhaps there won't be any capacity or capability within the Hamas to strike back.
Okay.
So, states often
they were taken by surprise.
They were taken by surprise, and states often go the wrong way if they do not have the right kind of intelligence gathering.
Correct.
So this time it was a massive failure. So I won't say that the deep intrusion and the ground assault will be a long-term message, but it will be a short-term message, and it is something that Israel will have to do. It will be a short-term message, and it is something Israel has to do. It has to respond to a terror attack. It can't just be, on the defensive. It has been on the defensive last few days. It has to go on an offensive. And I don't think airstrikes have been happening before as well. The rockets and the Iron Dome has worked before as well. But it has to do something that hasn't happened before. It has to change the definition and bring in a paradigm shift to this terror attack. So a response has to be there, and Israel is known for that. The Mossad is known for that. The IDF is known for that. So clearly, I think this ground assault also will not be a few hours affair. It will be days and weeks into Gaza.
Dr. Rajiv, it's going to be days and weeks for Gaza. It means that it's going to be an alley by alley, neighborhood by neighborhood operation. If you say that it's going to be a neighborhood by neighborhood and alley by alley, it means that a substantial amount of size of the army goes in, something which was last visible during Yom Kippur War of 1973. It's 360,000 reservists. It's equal to what was mobilized during Yom Kippur, 1973, sir.
No, that was also a failure, intelligence failure of Israel. So it is, again, this time the opposition party is saying that, yeah, another Yom Kippur has taken place. So it is going to be a tough operation. There is no doubt about it. And the amount that we just discussed, I completely agree with Dr. Paul, Mr. Paul, that, yeah, there's massive intelligence failure. You did not gauge the amount of attack you are going to have from Gaza, and especially from Hamas. Generally, it is being so the sole reliance on tech intelligence is eluded. But yeah, somehow, whatever, human intelligence has failed here. And or maybe they did not deploy much human intelligence in the region.
I think that's a very important point you are making. Human intelligence failed, Aditya. It also means that there was an over-reliance on electronic surveillance and there was no human asset inside Gaza. So without human asset, such a big military operation, is it possible in modern times, in urban alleys? History is witness to Operation Mosul, Operation Aleppo. I have been to Aleppo. The whole city is destroyed. There's nothing left. You'll have to just bulldoze the city to build it again.
Well,
Saturday, you can't rebuild it, Aditya, you can't rebuild it.
Saturday's terror attacks say about Israel that anything is possible. Mossad was known for launching any kind of operation, not just on the Israeli territory, but all across the globe. But they failed as well. They have failed and then they have regained control. I mean, Mossad is known for that.
But how will they go after the leadership? Leadership is spread across the world. They are dictating terms in Gaza while they are in the... they can be in Qatar, they can be in Doha, they can be anywhere.
It will be a challenge and difficulty is certainly going to be there. But they went after the Nazi war criminals. They went after Nazi war criminals in Argentina, in different parts of the globe, and eliminated them. Many of them were brought in alive to Israel to face the gallows or the law. So I am not saying that it's going to be easy. It's going to be very difficult. One, a ground operation, and then to hunt down the leaders all across who might be hiding in Lebanon or Iran or different other areas. And I think step by step there will be a strategy in place, not only of a ground assault and eliminating the leadership of Hamas, but also making them completely incapable and then looking inwards so that another such terror attack doesn't happen. Because in my journalism career, or even before that when I was young, I haven't seen this massive, huge scale terror attack where hundreds of terrorists come on paragliders and not just use the air but also land and sea. It's unprecedented situation. It's an unprecedented terror attack, and certainly the response will be unprecedented as well.
These are the visuals from Gaza which I was showing you, and the visuals from Gaza are a clear testimony to the fact the sort of huge operation that is taking place in the Gaza Strip. Gaza Strip is not a small area. It has got number of cities, it has got number of places, it's adjoining the coastal areas, and you have 2.3 million people living in Gaza. If you look at these visuals, you'll understand that the operation which is imminent now, the discussion was whether it's going to be a shallow operation or whether it's going to be a deep operation, whether this operation is going to be like Protective Edge of 2014 or is it going to be like the Cast Lead operation of 2009. The misery in Gaza is not going to go away. The things which Hamas has done, the things which Hamas leadership has done, the terrorists have done, will cause immense misery. Is going to cause immense misery to the Gazans, and this will require a Herculean task on part of the Israeli state, a Herculean task on the part of the Israeli state to get Gaza on track, because there is one thing to go inside and kill all the terrorists, but then it will be another what is left of the Gaza, because Gaza is not a foreign territory. Gaza is within the borders of Israel, and this is an operation which is taking place in Israel. And most important, Friday. Friday is a day where the entire Muslim community all over the world, and it's being watched how they articulate themselves from Jeddah to Makkah to Medina to Baghdad to Damascus to Istanbul to Ankara to Cairo to Alexandria to Kosovo to even the way the minority community in India, Delhi, or even to say in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, Jakarta, how they organize themselves. It's going to be a different ball game on Friday, and Israel will need to brace itself for that public opinion, because what this terror attack has done is it has completely derailed the American plan. And then you have the axis of Tehran, Beijing and Moscow. And it is for these reasons, gentlemen and ladies, that the Putin has not openly come out in support of the Israel. He has spoken of Palestine. The same gentleman 1.5 years ago spoke more than 12 times to the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, or I think 15 months ago. And now the calls have been curt and small. That's the difference. That's how quickly the global geopolitics change. That's how quickly the global geopolitics changes its shape.
He thought he could outlast us. And 1 year later, the evidence is right here in this room.
Who will blink first?
So far from preventing the expansion of NATO, Russian actions have actually resulted in the expansion of NATO.
It's a mess for Russia and it's a mess for the Western world, for NATO and the United States.
Putin is a dictator, and if he loses, that means the end of his regime, and probably of him personally. So he has to keep going.
Year 2, no end in sight. Streaming now.
In a quiet corner of India's Goa, in the home of a retired Rear Admiral of the Indian Navy, lies a centuries-old samurai sword that was once owned by a World War II fighter pilot. Today, it could be worth millions, and you and I must return it. Intrigued? It all begins with Group Captain CGI Philip. He was a veteran of the Royal Indian Air Force, fighting Imperial Japanese forces in Burma during World War II. Yet one thought troubled the veteran, a half-forgotten memory of an IJA officer. Group Captain Philip could recall how the proud officer had surrendered a priceless family heirloom, a katana. In his final years, Group Captain Philip had but one last wish, a desire to return the sword to its rightful owner. This is the sword that Group Captain Philip